After spending 3 days in Shanghai, I unexpectedly gained a new insight. This may well be the city that feels least like China. Shanghai often evokes a sense of detachment, of existing somehow apart from the rest of the country. I believe this stems from far more than just its 19th century history as a treaty port. Rather, throughout its history spanning over a century, Shanghai, and the people who call it home, have consistently embodied a spirit of striving upward, yet one that remains forever unable to sever its ties to the native soil. A Western-style social fabric had taken shape here long before the founding of the modern nation-state. Consequently, the city and its inhabitants are compelled to maintain a delicate grace as they navigate the balance between embracing tradition and upholding the tenets of a progressive civilization. Perhaps the people of Shanghai cannot be faulted for this. Perhaps it is merely a matter of time. Yet I remain convinced that, so long as a place like Shanghai exists, we are always drawn a little closer to realizing the ideal civilization we hold within our hearts. To be honest, I am not particularly familiar with Shanghai, nor have I ever lived here. I am completely clueless about the specifics, what purpose a certain West Road or Central Road actually serves, what history lies behind it, or which famous figures once resided there. All I know is that, historically, many foreigners used to live in this area. Frankly, I hadn't really taken the time to properly explore these streets in Shanghai before. However, when I recently wandered through them with my camera in hand, the sheer sense of refinement I encountered truly took me by surprise. I have visited numerous streets and Western-style mansions built by Europeans and Americans across China, yet in most places, these structures struggle to truly blend with the local temperament, not even in Hong Kong. It is only in Shanghai, and only the Shanghainese people, who have truly grasped this unique sensibility, seamlessly integrating it into their daily lives and preserving it for over a century. This, perhaps, is the essence of Shanghainese refinement. It is not about luxury or ostentation, rather, it is a habit, a way of life. Whether crafting a simple paper box, packaging a cake, or baking a single biscuit, everything must be executed with exquisite precision and meticulous attention to detail. If you were to travel across China, visiting its cities and streets, both large and small, just as I have, you would undoubtedly come to share my view that aesthetic sensibility is, without question, one of the greatest shortcomings among the Chinese people today. Some might retort, when people can barely get enough to eat, what business do they have talking about aesthetics? Yet aesthetics is not something that necessarily requires money. If you lack it, no amount of wealth can buy it for you. Thus, here on Shaanxi North Road, aesthetic sensibility takes on a peculiar nature. It becomes something incredibly precious. A luxury that, even if you had the money, you still could not purchase. Nowhere else in China have I encountered an atmosphere of such exquisite refinement. The legacies left behind by Westerners have been preserved in Shanghai with a sense of natural inevitability. Moreover, the newly constructed buildings, the small shops lining the street, and their signage have done nothing to mar the distinctive character of this thoroughfare. It is a character that the people of Shanghai have preserved with remarkable authenticity. At the Columbia Circle, Shaanxi, one encounters a unique blend of Japanese aesthetics and a Western-style leisurely lifestyle, a combination I have never seen in Japan, Europe, or the United States. Only the magical city of Shanghai could pull this off. A century ago, this site was known as the Columbia Circle, residential enclave. Today, Renamed Columbia Circle, Shangxingxinsuo, it functions as an open urban block, a cultural hub, a haven for cafes and bookstores, a favorite hangout for young people, and an ideal venue for outdoor seating and pop-up markets. History here is layered stratum upon stratum. No layer obscures another, nor does one negate the next. They simply coexist. I stepped inside the former U.S. Navy Club and stood by the poolside, gazing for a while. Through the arches, I could catch a glimpse of the azure water. It was my first time seeing such architecture in person, the kind I had previously encountered only in movies and TV dramas. In that moment, I marveled at the sheer power of this architecture's functionality. It has the ability to instantly transport you into vacation mode. To think that Americans over a century ago already knew how to indulge in leisure so exquisitely. The swimming pool is built to British specifications, featuring a mosaic finish with intricate patterns that appear so vivid and crisp, it looks as if the tiles were laid just yesterday. The pool water was a transparent shade of blue, shallow, and reflecting both the sky above and the surrounding arcades. The columns were white, their capitals adorned with simple carvings. The two-story annex building, originally renovated in the 1980s, still stood and had since been converted into a restaurant. The Tsutai bookstore is situated within the grounds of the Columbia Country Club. Here, Japanese aesthetics blend seamlessly with the Spanish architectural style characteristic of the American West. Stepping through the doors, one is greeted by a space that retains its original charm. The fireplace, constructed of red brick, remains intact, with a few decorative books arranged inside the hearth. The original wooden doors and windows have all been preserved. Freshly repainted, they now sport a deep, vintage shade of brown. The bookshelves, however, are new, crafted from oak. They stretch all the way to the ceiling, laden with books. Some patrons stroll leisurely between the shelves, while others sit reading and sipping coffee. It truly goes to show that the Japanese possess a unique flair for interior design. In fact, I find myself wondering whether even European designers could have managed to create an atmosphere quite as exquisite as this. The Columbia Circle complex truly exudes a distinctly Japanese vibe. A sense of refined neatness permeates every minute detail. The spatial design itself follows a Japanese aesthetic, and, coupled with the fact that the locals here in Shanghai also tend to dress in a very Japanese style, the atmosphere feels quite different from that of Zhang Yuan. Once again, I feel as though I've been transported to some corner of Tokyo. Right at the entrance of the Sigma store, they have essentially transplanted a traditional Japanese garden design directly onto the site. At Zhang Yuan, enjoying afternoon tea bathed in the late-day sun is simply delightful. The atmosphere here is a world apart from that of the tea houses in Chengdu. Devoid of even a hint of traditional Chinese living, it surely makes the Westerners present feel right at home. It even left me, a Chinese visitor seeing Zhang Yuan for the very first time, feeling momentarily entranced, under the curious illusion that I had somehow found myself in a foreign land. I suppose the people of Shanghai truly have a special fondness for this Western-style way of life. No matter, wherever I go, I am essentially a local outsider, anyway. I'll just treat this as a visa-free trip abroad. Take a look at this corner. The way these specific objects and colors are arranged together creates an effect that certainly wasn't achieved by simply tossing things down at random. It is a kind of exquisite elegance hidden right amidst the urban bustle, the sort that compels anyone passing by to pause and admire it. To fit an entire world into such a compact space reveals, for all to see, the refined aesthetic sensibility so characteristic of people from the South. As I approach this bakery, I imagine that even film crews specializing in short-form dramas for international audiences would be beaming with delight upon seeing the decor here. The setting is so authentic that they could roll cameras immediately, without a single modification, and begin filming a story set in some quaint little European nation. When it comes to understanding Western life, the people of Shanghai face no barriers whatsoever. I won't ramble on here about the history of Zhang Yuan. Suffice it to say that this place was once the most significant locale within Shanghai's concessions. Nowadays, this grand estate has been leased out on a long-term basis by LVMH. I feel that it is these Western brands, in particular, that truly understand how to adorn these buildings, perhaps because, in a sense, these Western-style structures are simply returning to their roots. Placing a Chinese brand here, by contrast, would likely feel quite out of place. 143 years have passed. From the moment Uncle Zhang Shuha purchased this plot of land, to the completion of the Arcadia Hall, to the construction of the Shikumen Lane houses, to the arrival of the 72 tenants, to their eventual departure, to the brands moving in, and finally to the influx of tourists, Zhang Yuan has been in constant flux. Yet, at the same time, it feels as though nothing has changed at all. It remains that foremost garden of Shanghai, that multifaceted public space integrating a diverse range of functions, and that quintessential hub for a refined, elegant, and nostalgic Western-style way of life. What does old Shanghai feel like? In the past, I had only ever glimpsed it through movies and TV dramas. That changed the moment I bought a ticket to the Paramount. The instant I stepped into the elevator, I was overcome by a sensation of having traveled back in time. This place has truly been replicated down to the very last detail, perfectly capturing the atmosphere of that bygone era.
这电梯太棒了，就是这个味儿，你知道吧？它不是那种纯奢华，这二维码有点不好。你看那里。能过客户就可以了。没了。
不是，他先把这个接缝的地方弄好，再放过去。舞台边上到时候放一张方桌，放奖品的就够了。一楼要不要迁到台里？一楼。一楼呢？
I imagine that if one were to film a period drama set in old Shanghai here, the actors would simply need to change into their costumes. The setting itself is already pitch perfect. Even the wait staff here maintain a distinctly old-school style. It strikes me that the people of Shanghai truly cherish the memory of that glorious era. The Paramount holds countless memories of famous figures. It stands as the most iconic relic of old Shanghai. I came here alone, and since I don't know how to dance, seeing everyone dressed in such period attire only intensified that sense of time travel. Afternoon tea here costs 180 yuan per person, which includes a selection of pastries and a pot of tea. To be honest, for someone who isn't here to dance, that price point is certainly not cheap. Yet, sitting here in my seat, I've realized that, of all the places I've visited in Shanghai, this is the one that has offered the most value. For it is only here that I have truly come to understand what Shanghai was really like in days gone by. Although the people dancing here are no longer young, that is perhaps precisely what makes this place so fascinating. You can imagine what they looked like in their youth. And you can also envision the bygone splendor of Shanghai. Finally, though I'm still not entirely sure why, I made a trip to the Shanghai Great World. Looking back now, it was likely because of that famous old saying, "If you haven't visited the Great World, you've come to Shanghai in vain." This venue first opened its doors on July 14, 1917. Its founder was Huang Chujio, a commercial genius of old Shanghai. He christened it the Great World, a name likely intended to convey that everything imaginable could be found within its walls, offering sights and experiences to broaden anyone's horizons. Later, Huang Jinrong of the Green Gang took over the reins. Under his management, the venue expanded even further, eventually becoming the premier amusement center in the Far East. The history of this place took many twists and turns over the years. In any case, it has now been repurposed as a center for the exhibition of intangible cultural heritage. When I arrived, I happened to catch the free afternoon performance, something, I was told, that takes place every day. There weren't a huge number of people there to watch the show, but my curiosity led me to join the crowd of Yeshu, uncles, and aunties, gathered to watch the performance. As it turned out, there were only 3 free acts on the bill. Yet, standing there in Shanghai, surrounded by a group of elderly locals inside a building that is now over a century old, and watching such a delightfully retro performance was a truly peculiar sensation. It felt almost as if I had made a special pilgrimage there solely for the sake of nostalgia. As the performance drew to a close and the audience dispersed, I was left with a faint sense of melancholy. In truth, this sentiment mirrors that of the dancers inside the Paramount Ballroom. It is, for all of us, a form of nostalgia for the old Shanghai way of life. Whether this lifestyle will still exist decades from now is something I can no longer say with certainty. In any case, the younger generation of today likely no longer harbors any nostalgia for such a way of living. It truly is a piece of intangible cultural heritage, one that, it seems, is slowly fading away, with each performance we witness bringing us one step closer to its final disappearance. Many people often perceive Shanghainese as somewhat insular and, for lack of a better word, haughty. At times, this very haughtiness drives them to pursue a de-Asianization and Europeanization agenda even more resolutely than the Japanese. When walking the streets of Shanghai, one frequently finds oneself wondering, is this really China? From architectural styles to fashion choices and even lifestyles, Shanghai gives me the distinct impression that it is on the verge of transforming into a European city. I suspect this is likely the reason they chose to erect the Jing'an Temple, a structure of such imposing grandeur, right in the city center. Were it not for the presence of such a striking temple, people might well begin to question which country they were actually in. I view the Shanghainese as people who have seen the world, those with broad horizons and worldly experience. For those who lack such exposure, this can indeed sometimes manifest as an inadvertent air of superiority. Personally, however, I do not take offense at this kind of pride in others. After all, having seen the world provides one with the legitimate grounds, the capital, to feel that way. In fact, I would hope that everyone could have the opportunity to see the world. Wouldn't our cities be all the better for it?